Namaste and a very good afternoon to all our participants today. I'd like to invite you to today's ICANN discussion, which is on managing thoughts and emotions during COVID 19. Just to let you know, ICANN India COVID Action Network is an initiative to help underprivileged communities that have been hardest hit due to COVID 19. It is a unique movement to combat the pandemic through an online platform that connects those who are in need of help and those who can provide it. Our COVID warriors work from home, activating their on ground community networks and mobilizing resource providers in order to connect the two and ensure that the most vulnerable sections of society can also sustain themselves through these difficult times. COVID warriors are spread across different states of India and are steadily growing day by day. Till date, COVID has impacted almost 40,000 lives. We'll quickly break into our COVID anthem now. While we begin screen sharing, I'd just like to check. I hope you all are staying safe and staying healthy.
हौसला रूठे नहीं, साथ ये छूटे नहीं, मंजिल दूर नहीं, मानवता है पुकार रही, दिखाए हम दरिया दिली. I can, you can, we can, India can. I can, you can, we can, India can.
So let's keep in mind, I can, you can, we can, India can. Do check out our website and please register if you think you want to make a positive impact, even as an individual, an NGO, or a corporate who just wants to do something more in these tough times. So I would like to invite our speaker today on board. We have the renowned Mr. Nitin Shah, founder and CEO of iChar's Support Foundation and the CEO of Institute of Clinical Hypnosis and Related Sciences. Thank you so much for taking your valuable time and joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nitin Shah is a trainer, educator, therapist, life coach, motivational and inspirational speaker. Over the last decade, Nitin has trained over 800 mental health professionals, including 300 plus coaches and 400 plus psychotherapists. As a therapist, trainer, and coach, he has touched over 50,000 minds. He's now working towards improving the quality of available mental health care. The various training programs he conducts under iChars are focused on helping psychologists and coaches develop advanced therapeutic and coaching skills based on a unique eclectic approach that integrates concepts and practices from major fields of psychology, which are cognitive, behavioral, humanistic, and psychodynamic, with clinical hypnosis, NLP, and different types of meditations. With iChar Support Foundation, that is an NGO, he focuses on creating awareness about mental and emotional well-being. iChar's SF organizes free workshops, seminars, and group activities for parents, students, teachers, and individuals to equip them with effective tools for managing their emotional and physical state. Under iChar's SF, Nitin has also initiated certain initiatives to help people deal with COVID-19 and lockdown related anxiety and stress. These initiatives include a variety of video based support groups, phone helplines, and daily talk shows. So, we are lucky to have you on board today. Today's topic is something that most of our participants will also relate to very strongly. We are all together in these tough times. And I would just like to say that it is a frightening and uncertain time right now. We are in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, the likes of which we have never seen before, with cities and even entire countries shutting down. Some of us are in areas that have already been affected by COVID 19. Others are bracing for what may come. One third of the world is already under lockdown, with India representing one of the most densely populated clusters. So that comes with its own challenges in terms of access to resources, essentials, which leads to different kinds of psychological issues and stress. As of today, all of us are watching the headlines with a sense of doom and constantly wondering what is going to happen next. So, for many people, the uncertainty surrounding coronavirus is the hardest thing to handle. We don't know how exactly we'll be impacted or how bad things might get, and that makes it all too easy to play these futuristic doomsday theories in mind and catastrophize, and people end up spiraling into overwhelming dread and panic. But but there but I'd like to tell our participants that there are many things that you can do to battle with these thoughts, even in the face of such a unique crisis. And we will be able to manage our anxiety and fears with certain tools, tips, and tricks that Nitin will share with us today. I'll request Nitin to take over the conversation.
Sure. So thank you, Mandira, for that introduction and also for setting the context. It's true that predominantly one feeling that probably people are experiencing today more than ever is anxiety and fear, right? And while we are going to talk about managing thoughts and emotions, I'm going to take anxiety probably as the starting point so that we can also take examples related to that, and that will help our participants to be able to really understand what they can do in the current times that we are facing. Though the strategies that I'm going to talk about will not just be applicable to anxiety in the current situation, it will also be applicable to probably any other kind of emotion that they may be experiencing in different situations. Okay. Now, when we talk about anxiety, you will notice that at least in today's time, there are two primary kinds of anxiety that people experience. One is an immediate anxiety about their health, right? That what if I catch the virus? How would I manage? How would I take care of things? And second is anxiety about the future, because while we are in this situation, we don't know how would the world be after the situation settles down. And it's important to be able to divide anxiety in these two categories, because your way to work with both of them would vary. Okay? There's no one fit all solution for both the types of anxiety, right? So to first talk about anxiety related to future. Now, in most cases, when we are anxious about uncertainties about future, we are anxious about them because we have not planned for them, right? And that's actually one of the things that happened with a lot of us, that we had a lot of plans in place, and now all of those plans have gone out of window because we don't know what will happen post this phase comes to an end. And while all of us agree that to some extent the world will not be exactly the same, we will all have to change, accommodate, adapt to the changing environment, right? But we are so stuck in our old patterns that we are trying to fix those old strategies into the new world. Maybe we need to begin with first planning what we are going to do in future from here onwards. So that will be the first step that I would recommend. And because as you mentioned that we run these anxiety support groups on a probably on a daily basis. So this is one thing that seems to have worked for a lot of people who have been facing anxiety related to future, which is to sit and identify what were their goals for the future to begin with. And then start working backwards in terms of how the changing environment would enable them to work towards those goals. So for example, we conduct training programs, right? And our training programs are based on working with therapists and psychologists. Now, those are not training programs that I can actually conduct online because there's a lot of practice sessions involved. And all our programs have come to a halt. But the fact that I know this is here to stay means I need to start looking at products that I'm going to be able to use even on an online format. So we have simplified the versions, we have come up with smaller processes, programs that can be taught online so that people can understand how what we are doing is different. And then eventually when things open up, that will be the time when they would be open to the idea of coming for the classroom sessions also. So we are just kind of planning for the eventual opening up, right? And this is true for so many of us. There are so many of us who had been talking about the fact that if I had time, I would learn new skills, right? You have time now, and luckily we have internet.
Yes.
While that's a curse in many ways, it's also a boon in many ways because the number of things that you can do to develop skills, the scope is immense, right? What you need to know is what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve, because from there you can start working backwards in terms of understanding what skills do you need.
Right.
So if you feel that I am doing a job that I was never happy with, but I was not able to leave this job because I did not have the right skill sets to take a jump to a new job, this is the time to think of what would that new job be, right? And then based on that, start working on your skills. If you are someone who's into business and you were thinking from a classical point of view of business, thinking that I'm going to do a brick and mortar business, right? Now you realize that you have time to actually be able to innovate and think what else can you do. You would not have had this time if this did not happen, right? So that's one area. Can you start thinking outside the box to look at what are the other possibilities that may be possible and make use of this time more effectively, right? Now this is about planning. Then comes the second part, which is a more immediate problem, which is that I'm so anxious in my thoughts. I look at news channel and I feel very worried and I feel very anxious, right? Now that has actually nothing to do with what will happen in the future. That has something to do with what's happening in my mind right now. And why is that anxiety important is because that anxiety also stops us from planning for the future. So you'll come across so many people who will tell you that, yeah, I know I need to plan, but the moment I sit with a plan, I think अभी कोविड हो गया, फ्यूचर में कुछ और हो जाएगा, तो फिर प्लान करने का क्या फायदा है? So those thoughts and those anxieties are also stopping me from kind of taking action towards my future. So how do we manage that, right? Now, how do we manage that would depend upon whether you understand why you're feeling anxious. Let's take the example of news channel. You look at the news and the news says these many people are becoming infected by COVID and you feel anxious, right? Now we think it's the news that's creating anxiety, but is it really the news that's creating anxiety?
Is it our own mind playing tricks?
Precisely, because technically, while the news channel are talking about the fact that the number of cases are rising, they're also talking about the fact that we are in a far better position than we could actually have expected to be in, right? It's also talking about the fact that for most of the people, this will not be a deadly kind of a disease, that you may get infected by it, but for most of the population, they will be able to handle it. The problem is more with it being able to uh, transfer from you into a very young child or a very old person who may have weaker immunity. But for most of us, our health is actually in place, right? Now what happens is our mind is focusing more on the numbers rather than the alternate, which is also possible, right? So to make it easier for you, I'm going to give you an example first, which is not related to COVID, to set the right context. You know, people who are afraid of public speaking.
Yes.
Yes. The moment they look at a stage, they feel anxious.
Yes, that's quite common actually.
That's quite common, right? By the way, fear of public speaking is probably the largest fear worldwide. It is in some research they claim that there are more people afraid of public speaking than people afraid of death. So that's the quantum. Now, when people are afraid of public speaking, what makes them afraid? Because not everyone is afraid. Some people look at stage and they're eagerly waiting till kuch to bolenge.
Right.
With some people, you have to make them quiet that, maybe we need to cut it short. And some people get very anxious speaking in front of a large audience. What's the difference? The people who get anxious would tell you that when I see that stage, I have this thought in my head, people will throw chappals at me or people will laugh at me. It's not the stage that's creating anxiety. It's the thought that people will throw chappals at me. Right? And the kind of people who are very gaga over going in front of a stage and speaking are people who will actually look at a stage and say, oh, kitte log tali bajayenge. So it's the same stage, but different thought patterns which are leading to different emotional responses. Some people are feeling confident, some people are feeling anxious. Now, if you actually think of it, it's the same thing with COVID. When someone watches news and they see, well, everything is in a lockdown, and they have a thought, what will happen to my future? They will feel anxious.
Right.
If there's someone who has a thought, oh, this gives me an opportunity to do something different, they may be very excited about what is the potential of what they can create out of this.
But I think a very common question here would be that how do I control my thoughts so that they don't venture in that direction ki log chappal fekhenge,
Perfect. So that's actually a very good question. And that's the answer that I want to give you during this episode today. But before that, I want to clarify that it's important to understand that it's not about our emotion. It's not about our this trigger or the situation. It's basically the thought that's playing in our head. Because once we understand that, we know what we need to work with.
Right.
That's first. And second, the good thing about thoughts is we don't have a thought 24/7. So I am not sitting and constantly thinking, shit, kal kya hoga, kal kya hoga, kal kya hoga, right? Or someone who's afraid of stage is not constantly thinking, people will throw chappals at me, people will throw chappals at me. There is a specific stimulus. There's something, kuch wo log dekhte hain, kuch wo log sunte hain, which becomes a stimulus for that thought. So for someone who's afraid of stage, will probably see a stage. It's when they see that stage, their mind knows that I have to think, people will throw chappals at me. They don't think about it 24/7.
Correct.
Right? Which means if I'm working, if I'm trying to change my thoughts, I need to understand what triggers those thoughts. And that is the biggest mistake that a lot of us make when we're trying to think positive. With trying to think positive, we are trying to create like a, how in Windows days there are different applications.
Yeah.
So like Word is one application.
Right.
I'm saying I'm installing an application called Word, which is a positive thought. But my mind doesn't really know when to switch on that application. I can't have the application on 24/7, right? So anyone who says that I want to think positive and tells you that I want to think positive 24/7, they're kidding themselves. Doesn't happen. I haven't come across, I have spoken to like the biggest of gurus and the babas and so on, and the biggest of psychologists. They will also tell you there are places where we have these thoughts. What if something goes wrong? So the problem is not with the thought. The problem is that I don't know where to change the thought. So now to come back to your question, how do we actually change it? The first step is to identify when do I have that negative thought. So if you are watching news and while watching news, you're feeling anxious, then my trigger is watching news. If you say that the moment I look at my partner's face and I know I am not able to provide her with the comfort that I want to provide her, then the partner's face is the trigger, right? Or when I look at my employees calling me up and asking me ki meri salary ka kya hoga, so then that call from my employee becomes the trigger. So that's the first step. Identify what that trigger is, right? So if I were to ask you, Mandira, to tell me one thing that you get affected by, what would that trigger be?
I think one of my personal biggest triggers would be social media. Just it's so difficult to disconnect and you want to stay in touch with everyone as well. But then there's so much information flowing which ends up causing different thoughts in your mind. And like you said, it's difficult to control them then.
Perfect. So would it be fair to say that watching a post on social media, which is related to COVID, becomes a trigger for the subsequent anxiety?
Yes.
Perfect. So this is the way to identify this stimulus, the trigger, right? Now, the next question is, when you look at that item, or when you look at that particular post,
Right.
what is the first thing that comes to your mind? What is the thought that runs in your mind?
It's just like, Arey yaar, not again. When is this going to end? And then again, like you mentioned, a lot of future anxiety as well. Ki baad mein kya hoga? That's one
Perfect.
of the biggest.
So would it be fair to say that the current thought that you're experiencing is ये कब खत्म होगा और future में क्या होगा?
Right. Absolutely.
Now, instead of this thought, if you could have some other thought which will make you feel better, what would that thought be?
I think better would be to completely forget about the situation, like not wonder what's going to happen in the future, and maybe just go about my day without this thought of COVID, is what I feel.
Okay, but if you were to watch a COVID news item or a COVID post,
Right.
what would you rather like to focus on? That if my mind could focus on this, then I
Right.
would feel calmer and better. Then I would not feel anxious. What would that be?
So that would definitely be, say, an update about the number of people who are recovering, lesser cases every day. So in the flattening of the curve, as they call it, or even the fact that people are following the lockdown as per regulations. So those kind of news will probably ensure I don't go about my day thinking about COVID, all the time.
Perfect. So now we have the old thought and the new thought both.
Right.
So our old thought was that when with this end, what will happen after this ends? And the new thought is, chalo, everyone is in lockdown, so probably we are safer.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
And that the lockdown will end sooner.
Correct.
Right? Now, if this is the thought that came into your mind naturally, the moment you looked at a post on social media, and this was a thought that was running in your head, would it make you feel better?
Yes.
Super. So now the question is, how do I create that switch from the old thought to the new thought? Right? Now, to answer that, I want to ask you, when I say Hare Rama, if you've heard of Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, the moment I say Hare Rama, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
ISKCON.
ISKCON? Perfect. So, and for most people who are following ISKCON would have the thought Hare Krishna.
Very good.
Right? Similarly, if I were to say Jor Se Bolo, the first thing that comes to your mind is
Mata Di.
Mata Di, right? And nowadays there is an advertisement, Kya Chal Raha Hai? So, Fog Chal Raha Hai, right? So, what is happening is we have been able to create an association in our mind where our mind knows the moment someone says Hare Rama, I should think Hare Krishna. The moment someone says Jor Se Bolo, my mind should think Jai Mata Di. The moment someone says Kya Chal Raha Hai, my mind has an automatic thought, Fog Chal Raha Hai.
Right.
Now, how have they been able to create this automatic thought patterns? So what's happened is they've used two principles. One is they've used the law of repetition, where you've just repeated both the stimulus and the new thought. Saath mein. So Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. You will always hear the two things together. That's how you're creating an association that Hare Rama would lead to Hare Krishna.
Correct.
Right? Yeah, Kya Chal Raha Hai would lead to Fog Chal Raha Hai. And second, it's rhythmic. It's like a chant. And chants have the possibility of getting stuck in our head. Now we follow the same principle with changing our thought patterns. So our original stimulus was when I see a post, right? And my new thought is, then I realize people are following the lockdown and we will soon be out of this.
Right.
So what I want you to do is just repeat this. When
I see,
watch a post,
when I watch a post,
then I realize people are following lockdown
people are following the lockdown,
and this will be soon over. This will be over sooner.
and this will be over sooner.
Right? And if I were to ask you to like close your eyes and repeat this like 5-6 times in your head, would you be able to repeat this?
Yes, definitely.
Please just go ahead and do that.
I'll also request the participants to do the same activity.
And when you repeat this to yourself, how does that make you feel?
Like calmer.
Calmer. So if this became like a natural process where every time you looked at that post, you had this thought, it will be extremely useful, right?
Right.
So this is what we do to restructure thoughts. We use what we call as a when then statement. The idea is I'm literally telling my mind whenever I see A, I want my mind to create the B thought.
Right.
It's almost like creating an association in a computer. कि जब भी मैं docx file को double click करूंगा, it should automatically open in a Windows Word application.
Right.
Right?
And I think the fact that you made us all close our eyes and repeat it, that kind of added that sticky value to it. That, you know.
Correct. And in order to add the sticky value, the best way to do it is do it like a chant for 2-3 days. Don't wait for watching the news channel or the post on the social media. You wake up in the morning, you're brushing your teeth, right? While brushing your teeth, mentally remind yourself. When I watch the news, then I realize people are maintaining lockdown and this will be over sooner. And this is just one example of a thought.
Right.
Right? I had someone in one of the recent support groups telling me that Nitin, when I watch news, then I realize how dumb news channels are. Okay, and he said just the thought made me so it's kind of funny, right? Now because it's funny, I'm no longer anxious. I'm more in a humorous mood.
Correct.
Right? Then there was someone else who told me that the moment I watched that post, then I realized I'm with my family and safe, and that's all that matters.
Right.
So each of our participants can actually come up with their own thought patterns. What we are sharing are only sample thought patterns. It's
Right.
always better for people to come up with their own appropriate thought patterns and to know whether the thought pattern works for them or not. Do this. Close your eyes, put it in this format. When the old stimulus, then the new thought. Right? And then repeat it to check if that makes you feel better. If that makes you feel better, then you know this is the right format to follow.
Right. So
Right?
it's a tool that our participants can customize and personalize actually for a lot of other situations as well, I believe.
Correct. In fact, in therapies, when we work with people, this is probably one of the fastest and the most effective ways of helping people change the thought pattern. And what we are doing is we are helping people change their thoughts without fighting with themselves. Ideally, otherwise, what happens with positive thinking and classical thought restructuring processes, it's like the alarm rings in the morning. I'm in a half sleepy state. My mind is telling me 10 more minutes. And then I'm trying to force it by telling it, nahi, nahi, abhi ut ja. Right? So there are like two contradictory thought patterns flowing in my head. But the moment I've created that association, when the alarm rings in the morning, then I realize it's time to wake up. That's the first thought that my mind would create. It will be a lot more easier for me to wake up in the morning because I don't have to fight with myself.
I think that's a great takeaway for a lot of us who are used to pressing snooze at least 5 times before we get up. So this is something all of us can try implement in our daily lives. Thank you.
Perfect. So this is one way of working with it, which is if then when then statement, right? Just if you have any questions about this, let me know because then I can clarify that and then I can move to other processes also. Or if any of our audiences have asked any questions, then I can.
Also request our participants to put the questions in the live chat box and we'll try to address them.
Okay. And any questions that you have?
I think I am quite happy right now with this one simple tool set that you've given me, and I'm thinking of multiple situations where I can use it to feel positive about my day. So, thank you,
Okay.
Nitin.
Thank you. So I'm just giving you sample examples, a couple of more examples for all our participants so that they understand what to create out of it. So one of the things that I did was when I looked at my partner's face, then I realized I'm getting so much time to spend with her. Okay. Now that works for me because I like spending time with her. You may have to come up with a different thought if the reason is something else. Right. Another one is for a long time, I wanted to invest some time in going through certain online modules, online courses. So when I wake up in the morning, this is the thought that when I wake up in the morning, then I realize today I can do 2 more online modules. So that kind of sets up the day for me.
Right.
Right. So these are some of the examples that all of us can keep in mind. The most popular one that I've come across is related to news channels. that the moment I watch the news channel, then I realize that, well, things are better than what they could have been, and we are on the road to recovery.
Right.
Now, this is about long-term thought management, because what we are doing is we are working on precautions. I am trying to change my thoughts today so that tomorrow when I watch the news, I don't feel anxious. Right? There are places where we have anxiety, which is, well, we just feel it immediately. I don't have the time to go through the process of identifying my thoughts and changing my thoughts and then waiting for future, right? So what do we do then? So one of the easiest process to follow over there is to close your eyes. So, okay, so let me do this demo with you quickly so that our participants also understand what they can do. Can you think of a past experience where you experienced either anger or anxiety? You don't have to share it with us, but I just want you to think about it. And as you start thinking about it, you can just close your eyes and allow yourself to get in touch with that anger or that anxiety that you were experiencing earlier. And once you get in touch with it, just let me know where in your body can you feel it. You know, generally when we start experiencing that anxiety or that anger in our head, we also feel it like a heaviness in our chest or tenseness in our muscles. So where exactly are you able to feel that feeling in your body? Can you verbalize that for me?
So I feel like you said a little heaviness in the chest, and also, in the abdomen, I feel a little movement.
Perfect. So what I want you to do is just close your eyes. Notice that heaviness in the chest and the discomfort in the abdomen and give it a color. What color would you give the discomfort?
I think black.
Black. Good. So now that you've given that black color, once again, just close your eyes. Inhale through your nose. And as you exhale, exhale through your mouth that black color. Imagine that you're blowing the black color out of your mouth. And do this 3-4 times till you notice that the black color is completely gone from your chest and from your abdomen. And then slowly open your eyes and let me know how are you feeling now.
The thought has completely left my mind.
Perfect. So the idea with this is what we are doing. We are converting the physical, the mental thought into a more tangible color. Now, it may be difficult for you to work with anxiety directly, but it's actually easier to blow out the color. And the moment you blow it out, you notice yourself feeling calmer.
Right.
Right? Now, this is not a long-term resolution. When we spoke about when then is more like a systematic restructuring, where once you are able to do it in future, the chances that you will face the same problem again is highly unlikely.
Right.
What we have done right now is like a quick painkiller, that if I don't have enough time to do that, but I want to be able to manage my anxiety quickly, then this is a good process to keep in mind. It will immediately calm you down, and then later when you have time, you can go back to when then and work with that.
So there could be some possible unexpected triggers, right, where we could use this tool.
Correct.
So this would be extremely effective in those situations where you don't know what to expect and all of a sudden you are anxious.
Perfect. And once you do this, once you use this tool, then after some time when you're feeling better, look back and check what trigger caused the anxiety. And then you can do a and then statement for that.
Okay. Right.
Right. So that's how you can kind of play with these processes together.
Thank you.
Right? Like, then obviously a lot of people talk about meditations. That meditations can be extremely useful when you are doing managing thoughts and emotions. Well, you have to be careful with meditation. I know what I'm going to say is a slightly going against the norm of what most people say, but you have to be careful about meditation because there is no one type of meditation. There are different types of meditation, and not all meditations create the same effect. Many a times doing the wrong meditation can lead you deeper into anxiety and fear.
Okay.
What do I mean by this? So I'm quickly going to talk about what meditations not to do and then what you can do. So broadly speaking, we divide meditations in categories. First category is thought-based meditation, where you're actually closing your eyes and you're observing your thoughts and you're becoming aware of what all is happening in your mind. Right? Second category is when you're becoming aware of something external. So for example, you look at a candle and you're like observing how the candle looks. You look at a flower and you're mesmerized by the beauty of that flower and you're trying to describe the colors and everything. So you're kind of becoming mindful of what you're watching, what you're noticing, right? Third would be body sensation based meditation, where you're actually observing the sensations in your body. Like if you're sitting on the chair right now or on your sofa right now, how does that sofa feel beneath you? If your feet is on the floor, what are the sensations in your feet when your feet touches the floor, right? So that's basically sensory based meditation.
Right.
Then there are chantings where you're meditating on chants, right? So these are all different kinds of meditations.
Right.
Now of this, generally when people talk about meditation, the first thought that comes to our mind is I have to sit, I have to close my eyes and I have to observe my thoughts. Those are the worst kind of meditations to do when you're anxious.
Okay.
Okay, because that will only make you more anxious. Your thoughts are already provoking anxiety.
And you're just replaying those thoughts again.
And you're becoming even more aware of them. Now, I understand if you were at a level of awareness where you were able to observe that, distance yourself, and not get affected by it, then we wouldn't be talking about this. So, for most people that we are talking to, they are not in a state where they can distance themselves from those thoughts, right? So, for them, doing those thought based meditations are probably the worst thing to do. So, what can you do instead? One, what you can do is first just begin by focusing on something external. So sit with something that you really enjoy. Let's say you enjoy looking at plants, right? Just look at the plant and notice everything that you can notice about that plant. So what you're really doing is you're throwing all those thoughts that you had in your mind, which were creating anxiety, away, and you're replacing them with something which is more neutral.
Right.
And once you have that, then you can close your eyes and start meditating on how the flower looked, because then your mind is more focused on that.
Right.
Right. When it comes to chant, now ideally you are supposed to chant in a way in which your focus is on the chanting. So chant is also going to help you achieve the same thing. But if you are someone who, while chanting, chants on an autopilot, but in your head you're still thinking ki shit kal kya hoga, okay, then chanting also avoid. Okay, then go back to focusing on something external, because that's more observable. It's easier to do from a sensory point of view.
Right. And I believe, like you mentioned, that after that we close our eyes and imagine the flower, the color. So we're actually actively engaging our mind into that activity. Whereas with chants, like once you are on autopilot, you do tend to, disconnect and start thinking other thoughts.
Correct. So that's the reason why if chanting, so for some people, they are able to focus on chant completely. If they are able to, brilliant, then chanting works for you. But for most people, because that doesn't work, they kind of get drawn into their thoughts again. In that case, it's actually better and easier to also focus on something external, let your mind get completely consumed by it, and then close your eyes and describe that. Okay. So one of the meditations that we actually recommend to people is this. We tell them that before you begin, with your eyes open, just verbalize 3 things that you can see. Okay. So if you want, you can just tell me what are the 3 things that you're able to see.
I can see a coffee table, sofa, and plants.
Perfect. And the 3 things that you can hear.
I can hear the fan, and it's a little quiet outside because of the lockdown. But yes, I can hear other people in my house on the phone as well.
And my voice. Right? 3 things that you can feel while you're sitting on that sofa.
Comfortable, relaxed, and enjoying the conversation.
Perfect. And if you have to tell me the sensations?
Sensations would be cozy, and I think calm right now, and also excited.
Perfect. Now, next step, focus. Tell me 2 things that you can see. Only 2 things.
My laptop and a table.
Perfect. 2 things that you can hear.
Fan and your voice.
Two things that you can feel.
Calm and excited.
One thing that you can see.
My laptop.
One thing that you can hear.
Your voice.
One thing that you can feel.
Calm.
Close your eyes and then tell me three things that you would like to see with your eyes closed.
I like to see greenery. Like, does it have to be around me,
No,
or
not necessary. Anything that you would like to see.
greenery, mountains, and the sun?
Perfect. Three things that you would like to hear with your eyes closed.
Birds, a waterfall, and splashing around sounds.
Three things that you would like to feel, that you would really like to sense in your body.
Like to sense the touch of like being in the ocean or swimming around. Like to enjoy a good exercise session, like mountain climbing or something. And I would like to feel calm. Yes.
Perfect. Two things that you would like to see with your eyes closed.
Two things would be mountains and the sun.
Two things that you would like to hear.
Two things would be the sound of birds and just the sound of water splashing.
Two things that you would like to feel.
I'd like to feel calm, and I'd like to feel a cooling sensation of being in water.
Perfect. One thing that you would like to see.
I'd like to see the mountains.
One thing that you would like to hear.
The sound of birds.
One thing that you would like to feel.
I'd like to feel calm.
Perfect. So just allow your focus to go to that calmness and tell me where in your body can you experience that calmness right now as you observe your breath.
I think I can sense it like in the top half of my body.
Perfect. And did you notice how when we were doing this process, your mind kind of got more decluttered rather than focusing on too many things, it started focusing on few things at a time?
Yes, absolutely.
So this is a very good process to follow, because one of the reasons for anxiety that people experience, especially during the COVID-19 situation, is there's so much happening in our mind that we are not really able to figure out what to focus on. And that overwhelms us. Right? So when you start decluttering your mind, it's easier. Now, if you were to directly close your eyes and try and focus on your thoughts, it's too much that's happening in your head. So by going from 3, 2, 1 with eyes open and then 3, 2, 1 with eyes closed, what you're doing is you're literally training your mind to go from too much to slowly shrink into something which is more specific. Right? And that if you practice this on a daily basis, this actually helps you learn how to focus and concentrate also better.
Correct.
So this is another strategy that people can use for managing their thoughts and emotions. But this is again a long-term strategy. You're like teaching yourself to be able to do this.
Something you need to practice every day.
Correct. But what I've noticed is once you've practiced it through 2-3 days, then you start enjoying it. So you start doing it more naturally. And also the beauty of these processes is that you don't really need to take out like half an hour, 20 minutes to do it. You could be having lunch and you could say, all right, while having lunch, what are the 3 things that I can see? Right? And eventually bring your focus simply to the taste of what you're eating so that you can enjoy the taste even more.
And I also think this also helps you know yourself better in a way, like know what's important to you. Through the process, I started realizing the value of certain things for me. So I think that's also something we can take away from.
Correct. So it eventually actually helps you move closer towards self-awareness. Right? So this is another process that you can use, or that all of our participants can use. Another one is where people say that when I close my eyes, there's already too many thoughts running in my head. Okay? So what do I do with that? Because I'm not even able to focus on anything. Okay? So there are 2 strategies that I follow for this, and both of them are like really small but really effective. The first one is the moment you close your eyes and you have a thought in your head, ask yourself what next? What will be my next thought? Okay. So if you want, you can quickly do this. Okay. So just close your eyes, observe your breath, and check what is the first thought coming in your mind. You don't have to verbalize it, but I just want you to check what that thought is. And the moment you have that thought in your mind, ask yourself, what will be my next thought? And then you will notice another thought creeping up.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, what will be my next thought? And carry on this conversation. You'll realize by the fourth or the fifth time, your mind would say, हो गया बस, अब और कुछ नहीं है. So what you're doing is, rather than suppressing the thought, you're telling your mind, let's have a conversation.
Right.
Okay. And this is one of the things that we keep telling people, that when you're working with your mind, don't try to control your mind. Okay. Your mind is keeping you alive. Your mind is running a lot of automatic processes in your body that you can't control or you're not able to control. So trying to control the mind is like fighting with yourself and fighting a very strong version of you. Not a very smart idea. It's better to make that strong version of you your friend. So have a conversation, but drive a conversation in the direction you want to drive it.
I am loving this fresh perspective that you brought, Nitin, because throughout we have always learned about how we need to be so strong and we need to control our mind. If you're only strong if you control your mind, you can only achieve if you control your thoughts and your mind. But this is a very fresh perspective, I think, even for most of our audience, that you put on the table. And I would definitely want to try this out in my everyday life, to have a conversation with my mind and partner with my mind, essentially.
Correct. And if you actually think of it, that's what. So ironically, if you notice, while most spiritual teachings talk about connecting with yourself, understanding yourself, but today most spiritual groups are also moving towards trying to control your mind. There's a contradiction over there actually. When you say I want to control myself, then you're not understanding yourself.
Correct.
Right? And what we are saying is, it's actually easier, better, and more effective to really go back to your primary teachings and you say, I want to understand myself better. And for that, you will need to have a conversation with yourself.
Right.
Right? And this is one of the processes that will help you achieve that. And because I said there are two processes, there's another one which is like really funny.
Okay.
So if you notice, when you have these thoughts in your head, these thoughts are also in the language that you understand. Right? So while the thoughts may be automatic, but if you were to focus on that, you will be able to make sense of it, because your mind is still trying to make sense of something. Right? But because there is so much happening, it's not able to make sense of it. So good process to follow is gibberish or gibberish.
Okay.
Now, any idea what is gibberish?
Just nonsensical blabberings.
So something like this, which actually makes no sense. It has no, you really don't know what you're saying. Right? But the beauty is, when you close your eyes and you speak to yourself in this format, your mind has no idea what hit it. And the mind wants to understand things.
Right.
So the moment you close your eyes and do this for 30 seconds, after 30 seconds, your mind goes blank because it doesn't know what to do next with that information.
Right.
And that again starts decluttering your mind.
Correct.
Right? So again, what you're doing is you're using strategies like carrying on a conversation, like gibberish, to be able to first quieten your mind down, or even the process of going from three things that you're focusing on to one thing. And once you're in that state where your mind is more decluttered, okay, then you can start focusing on something that you really want to focus on. Okay? And that's when you can do when then. So what we do is actually combine all of these things together.
Okay.
So if I have to do it like very effectively, I would tell people, close your eyes. First, observe your breath, 3 rounds of it. Then check if you have a thought in your head. Ask yourself, what next? Once you reach a place where your mind has gone blank, then do the when then statement. If in case you have too many thoughts because of which what next is not working, use gibberish. So that your mind can quieten down. And then use your if then statement or when then statement. Right? So you're kind of bringing all of these things together. And if closing your eyes is making you feel anxious, then first begin with breathing out that anxiety and then move on to these processes.
Right. So you essentially, all these processes that you shared are interconnected and we can use them in multiple situations.
You can use them in multiple situations and you can integrate them together.
So a combination of them bases the situation and our state of mind.
Correct. Right? So I hope that makes sense and that kind of you find it useful.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of our audience members are kind of making notes right now to, essentially practice this in everyday life. Thank you so much, Nitin.
Perfect. And lastly, because we spoke about meditation, a lot of times we go for complicated processes in meditation. And that's what comes in the way. Just understand meditation is a state of awareness. So if you have never meditated in your life, or if you find difficult to meditate, the only thing you need to do is begin with observing something that's happening in front of you. So for most people who starting fresh, I tell them, when you wake up in the morning, before you jump off the bed, just observe your breath for 3 rounds. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. Then when you're taking lunch, just before your lunch, 3 rounds of observation of your breath again. And then just before you sleep. So rather than going into an extensive meditation process, first teach your mind to become aware of and remain aware of something. Right? And then you will notice when you do just this small activity of 3 times observation of breath, 3 rounds a day, in the next 3, 4, 5 days, your mind automatically starts focusing more effectively on things that you want to focus on, because it's learned how it can focus on one thing at a time. Right? So that's again a good starting point to keep in mind.
I think it's very useful because most of us, as soon as we have that even small moment before lunch or during lunch, we reach out immediately to the latest technological gadget available next to us and mindlessly start scrolling. So we are kind of losing that skill to take a moment out and just focus on ourselves. So I think it's a good tool to even practice in everyday life.
Perfect. So when you spoke about picking up the gadget and so on, so one of the things that I've noticed, so this is what we worked with one person. They said that, I don't think it's just that my hand automatically goes and picks up the gadget, right? So we actually connected when then to gadget. That the moment I hold the gadget, so when I have the gadget in my hand, I realize I have to feel the sensation of the gadget in my hand. So you're still shifting your focus away from the gadget to the sensation in your hand, and you're teaching your mind to focus on something. The moment you're aware of that, then you can choose what you want to do with the gadget, because the gadget is not the problem. What you do with the gadget is the problem.
Fair enough.
Right? So that can be incorporated into the entire process. And basically, that's why I began with when then first, because the places where you can apply it is huge.
Right.
Right? So this is basically all the techniques that we were talking about, all the quick tips that we could look at, right? And I'm sure some of these things, if these videos are recorded and so on, people can obviously watch them again. And it's always a good idea to go, especially through this recording, a couple of times, because your mind begins to make sense of that more clearly and more effectively.
Right. So just to also inform our audience members, these recordings are available on our Facebook page, and they will also shortly be uploaded on our YouTube channel as
well. Perfect. Brilliant.
So Nitin, would you like to address, I know we are reaching the end of the conversation, but would you like to address a couple of questions that had come in earlier from our audience?
Yes, please.
So one of the key questions that a lot of people had asked was how to keep a relationship healthy with my spouse during the lockdown. A lot of people seem to be facing a challenge in and dealing with marital discord. So would you like to kind of speak on that?
Sure. So I'm going to give you a brief intro to this, because relationship in itself is a huge topic, and probably if we start talking about it, maybe 1 hour would be less for that, right? So, but to give you a quick answer to that question, when people talk about especially COVID-19 situation and the fact that we are with our partners 24/7, and it at times becomes too much to see the same person's face over and over again, with all due respect to how, no matter how much you love them,
right,
there's like a saturation limit that at times comes in our heads, right? So there are two parts to it. One level of conflict is that when I look at my partner, I am beginning to have thoughts about things that I would not like to think about, right? So for example, the moment I look at my partner's face and I see my partner sleeping, let's say, all right, and I'm working, The first thought in my head is, यार ये तो आराम से सो रहे हैं, मुझे काम करना पड़ रहा है. Now that's where probably when then statement will be useful. Okay? Because I'm sure your partner is doing something else during the day. It's not that they are sleeping 24/7.
Correct.
Right? But your mind is focusing more on that sleep rather than the other things that they're doing. So when I see my partner sleeping, then I realize there are other things that they are doing which is equally important, right? So if that thought plays in your mind, then that will probably be extremely useful. Second, it's important to know what's working for us. And the problem with most of us is we kind of have a tendency to think about what's not working, and we think about it a lot, and we don't focus on things that are working for us in our relationships. So I generally tell people that make a list of things that you can appreciate about your partner.
Right.
Write it down on a piece of paper and put it on a wall or somewhere where you can see it constantly. Right? Now the advantage is whenever you're feeling a particular thing about your partner, all you need to do is go back to that particular list. And the thing is, if you were to sit and think, what should I appreciate about my partner, then you're already angry, thinking will be difficult. But you have the list ready in front of you, then you can just read it and you realize, actually this makes sense. Right? For example, in my case, one of the things that we have on the list, and I actually have a list ready with me that I refer to when I need to, is that my partner has left her family for me.
Right.
Right? No amount of what I do for her can actually compensate for that. So the moment we have a tiff, the moment we have a problem, the moment we have some situation that we are not agreeing upon, okay, all I have to do is refer to that list, and I realize that I calm down immediately. Now, once I calm down, and she has her own list, so the moment we calm down, then we can have a conversation about it rather than fight about it, and we can resolve that conflict. So having that list of things that are working for you in the relationship can be extremely useful. Then there is the understanding of your partner. See, most of the times, because we are working and we are constantly focusing on our work, there is, while we may be living together, the amount of communication that we have with each other is highly limited. Right? And that's the reason why, while we don't understand our partners well and our partners don't understand us well, that doesn't really create a conflict, because we always have an escape route to focus on our work or focus on something else. Today, we don't have that escape route. Right? So those misunderstandings kind of would dikta, it's glaring in your face. And that's where certain topics like love languages and understanding how your partners communicate come handy. So I'm giving you a quick intro to love languages for people to understand this. So the idea with love language is that your partners understand love in different languages. And the primary languages can be words, they can be physical touch, they can be quality time, acts of service, and gift. Now, what do I mean by this? Words is when you actually tell your partner, I love you, I'm there for you, you're looking pretty today, khana bahut acha bana hai. So all of this, you're using words to appreciate what they are doing or the fact that they are in your life. Right? Then was physical touch, when you actually sit with your partner, hug your partner, hold your partner's hand, and so on. Quality time is when you're actually sitting and investing time with them without really doing something else. So it's not that you're watching TV and they are working in the kitchen, or you're working in the kitchen and they are watching TV. You're both focusing on something together.
Right.
Acts of services, when you do something for your partner without any expectation in return and without being asked to do it. So if my partner tells me to make a cup of tea and I make it for her, then that's not acts of service. If I make a cup of tea for her and tell her ki sham ko to cold coffee banayegi na, then that's not act of service, that's bargain, right? Act of service is when I actually go out of my way to do something for her that she's not asking me to do, that she's not expecting me to do, but something that she can appreciate. And finally is gifts, where you're actually giving them something, and gifts is not what you're buying for them. Even a chocolate being gift wrapped is a gift, and they have something with wrappers. Matlab the care with which they open the wrapper, it's almost like they appreciate the wrapper more than the gift. Right? So now the reason why this is important and why I shared this is because many a times conflicts in relationship happen because two partners are sharing love in different ways. So for me and my partner, for me, my primary love language is words. So I love listening to the fact that someone loves me. Someone tells me I care for you, that you are there for me. And that's also the way I communicate my love for them.
Right.
But for my partner, love is the least, words is the least important thing. So to an extent where if I tell my partner I love you, she's like, so kya karu main uska? Okay. Now that doesn't mean that she doesn't love me. Because earlier I did not understand that. And for me, words was equal to love. The moment she would say, so kya karu main uska? That would really make me feel bad because it's like below the belt. Right? And that conflict. For my partner, love for her is equal to acts of service.
Okay.
Right? So when I would be feeling uncomfortable, she would make a cup of coffee or tea for me. And I would look at her and I'll tell her, मेरे को नहीं चाहिए चाय कॉफी यार, तू just sit and tell me I love you. And she's like, मतलब तेरे लिए कितना भी करो कुछ काम का नहीं है, right? Now she's actually doing something for me out of her love.
Right.
I am not seeing it as love because I don't understand that. So this understanding of love language can be extremely useful because now when I know that my partner makes a cup of tea, that's her way of expressing love.
Correct.
I can naturally begin to feel that love and that discomfort goes away. Similarly, now that I know that my partner likes acts of service, when she's angry, I'm not going to go and tell her I love you because what I'm going to hear, I'm not going to like. Okay. So instead, what I would do is probably go in the kitchen, make a cup of tea for her and give it to her. And the speed at which she calms down. So it's important that now that you're spending so much time with each other, see if you can understand each other better, understand what love means to the two of you. Okay?
Right.
How you can express it more effectively. Okay? Love language is just one example of it. Okay? But a very powerful example. If you were to just focus on love language and kind of get that clarified with your partner, you would realize, well, a lot of things fall in place. Right? So that's another strategy that I can talk about in terms of your partners. Lastly, when you are angry, at times we end up saying things to our partners that we don't really mean, right? And then later on we regret. So between the partners, make a rule that when you're angry, speak to each other in gibberish.
Okay.
Okay. So the moment you're angry, don't vent out that anger, start talking to each other in gibberish so that you don't understand what each other, both of you are saying. But that will help you vent out the stored anger.
Right.
And then you can sit and have a conversation with your partner. Okay. But please tell your partner in advance that when you're angry, you will talk to them in gibberish. Otherwise, they would feel that you've gone bonkers.
Yeah, lockdown effects. You know.
Correct. So if you can clarify to your partner and have that conversation once, then you would realize that actually becomes a brilliant conflict resolution process because your conflict is not exaggerating. You are not holding on to what the other person said when they were angry. You don't really know what they said when they were angry.
Right. I think all of us are already thinking about what love language do we speak, what love language do our partners speak. I'm sure everyone is analyzing that right now.
And if you're not able to figure this out, just listen to what your partner complains most about. What they're complaining is their key love language.
Right. That's a good tip. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nitin. If we have 5 more minutes, if you're okay, addressing one more question and then we can have
Yeah.
close.
Sure.
So another question that had come in was regarding our younger audience and children. As parents, teachers, and educators, what kind of tools can we teach them to maintain a healthy state of mind?
So one, Venden is very, very effective for kids. And we have experimented with this. Because we have a set of psychologists who we have trained, and some of them are child psychologists. So a lot of them already use these tools and techniques with children. And with children, the benefit is that for them, it becomes like a game. When you ask them to chant when this, then this, when this, then this, it literally becomes like a chant in their head, which they do happily. Okay? And that's one of the best ways of being able to teach your children how to manage their thought processes. And if they learn this today, believe me, their future will be far better. Second, rather than teaching it to your children, also do it in front of a child. So good strategy is when you notice a child kind of feeling angry or anxious about something, tell them that, I'm feeling angry about something and I'm doing a process. It's like a game. Do you want to become a part of that game? I need your help. And you ask them to contribute in that game where they are helping you identify what the new thoughts will be for you. So once they participate in that game, they start realizing they can use this with themselves also.
Right.
So that's another process that you can do with them. Even blowing out the color can be very useful. Though with kids, we actually make it a bit more game oriented. So we'll tell them that imagine a balloon and you're blowing into the balloon and then you're like bursting the balloon. So they feel very like, there's this activity involved. So they feel really good that they are doing something physically involved in the entire process.
Right.
So you could incorporate that with the kids. Next, I understand this situation is difficult for you and therefore you are feeling a bit anxious and overwhelmed, but this is also difficult for the kids, right? So give them the benefit of doubt. Now, if your question is, I'm not able to give them the benefit of doubt, what do I do? Go back to when then.
Okay.
So those processes that we have discussed can actually be applied in each of these areas.
Right.
Right. And that's your go-to techniques.
Right. Thank you, Nitin. The universality of these techniques is very interesting. So I think the next time I'm going to be stuck on a problem, I'm going to just think which technique is applicable to this issue.
Perfect.
So, Nitin, I would request you for your closing remarks for our audience.
So I'm just basically going to close with the names of the techniques that we have covered first so that you have a list of it. If you want, you can make a note of it and the participants can make a note of it. So we've spoken about when then blowing out the color, right? Then focusing on three things, two things, one thing with eyes open and then eyes closed. Carrying on a conversation with yourself by asking what is the next thought that I have in my mind. Speaking in gibberish, right? And focusing on your breath 3 times in the morning, afternoon, and evening, and follow this like religiously for the next 4-5 days. So these were the quick tips that we have covered. I personally think if you can start applying these tips in your life, forget lockdown, you will realize that this probably was the biggest skill you have learned in your life, because once you learn to manage your thoughts and emotions, almost everything else falls into place.
Correct.
Right? And if you have any questions, please feel free to get connected, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of the questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Nitin, for taking the time out, but also for especially making this session so personalized for each one of us and addressing the kind of issues we are facing and sharing these universal tools which we can apply through everyday life, even post lockdown and post COVID scenarios. Once again, this has been an extremely enriching session for me personally as well. I thank you so much for coming on board today.
Thank you.
Thank you to our audience for joining us. Stay safe, stay healthy, and please revisit this video and make use of these amazing tips and tricks to help you cope with the COVID situation as well as any other everyday issues. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Take care.